Do you feel like your children are in a constant struggle or tug of war? Today we're going to talk about 8 easy steps to quash sibling rivalry in your home. Welcome to Epic Mom Life. I am your host, Kara Peterson. This show is sponsored by The Possum's Tale, a unique book adventure for your 6 to 12-year-old child. Let's jump into today's show. Do your kids hate each other? Is the bickering wearing you down? Do you feel like your children are in a constant struggle or tug of war? Regardless of what is being discussed, which item is desired, or who gets to do what, do your children turn it into a battle of wills? Today we're going to talk about 8 easy steps to quash sibling rivalry in your home. Sibling rivalry is a common problem. It doesn't matter the age differences or if you have boys or girls or both. Children will find reasons to argue. These rivalries can often lead to genuine feelings of dislike. What can you do to help end the fighting and create peace in your home? Number 1, set clear boundaries. Children need to know exactly what is and what is not acceptable. This applies to the language that is used, attention that is given. For example, can you spend time on electronics? Because sometimes people will fight over the device, or we used to have it all hooked to the TV so it was big and loud. They'll choose to fight over it. So have boundaries around that. Put downs. What can they get by with and dad or mom won't say anything? Who is expected to do what for chores? Because that will also cause contention. How are they expected to treat each other and each other's things? If, for example, the younger child goes into the older child's room and reads their diary or borrows clothing, do you take a firm stand, or is this perceived as an allowable offense because you just let it slide? An example of this is my older son, who's 5 years older than my younger son, was feeling like he didn't have any privacy. So we switched out his door lock on his bedroom door, and we got him one that had a regular lock on the outside that he had to lock with a key. So his brother couldn't get into it, and he was able to lock it when he left. He felt so much more secure with his stuff, and his younger brother absolutely could not go past that boundary. Number 2, do not allow teasing. Teasing just hurts. It's almost always about someone else being ridiculed. And it's usually couched in, like, there's a dig couched in a funny. There is no such thing as JK, just kidding, because the child usually feels really hurt. It's especially damaging when a younger sibling looks up to an older sibling. Many times as that younger child grows up and they are developing who they are and who they think they can be, they will actually listen to those older siblings who are telling them who they think they are, and that they will absorb that. If your child is constantly berating and teasing the younger one, it can lead to feelings of insecurity, lack of confidence, and often lashing out with a need to prove themselves, which I'm sure you have seen in your home. Number 3, don't compare your children. This is so hard. So my generation of growing up kids, we were told that you use positive reinforcement. So I'm parenting my littles and say one child is so good at using please and thank you and their manners, and the other one is really not. Well, it's really hard to say, Andrew, I feel so appreciated when you use please and thank you. That's an obvious comparison. But it was couched in a genuine affirmation, right? You really need to be careful about how you do that. And it's hard not to emphasize so that you're doing that and making sure that the other child knows what is and isn't acceptable by doing kind of that backhanded slide. Children want to be recognized. They want to be celebrated and loved for who they are. To be continually reminded of who they are not feels like a battle that they just aren't equipped to fight. This causes feelings of jealousy and inadequacy between children, which definitely leads to sibling rivalry and dislike and distrust. I actually went so far as, and my boys were really good, but I feel like I took a lot of steps to create that. I made sure, because we had that 5-year spread, I would have a really great teacher with my oldest child. I made sure my youngest child did not get that teacher, even though I knew that teacher was a great teacher. And I was a teacher. I was a public teacher, so I am not slamming teachers. But it is really hard for teachers to not have a preconceived notion like, oh, Sally was so good at English, I'm sure, this other child will be. They don't even think about the comparisons they make. And sometimes that not thinking might come out of their mouths. I made sure that this didn't happen by simply not having my children have the same teacher. It wasn't until my youngest was in 7th grade and there was a social studies teacher he wanted so badly, and I went to that teacher and he said, so you don't trust me with your kids? And I explained the problem, and he said, nope, I will be very careful, and I acknowledge what you're saying, and I acknowledge that it can be a problem. So I actually did talk to the teacher about it and tell him why I had this fear. And he acknowledged it, and that was better, and my kid had a great year. 4, plan activities that bring them together. If your children go to public school, they're separated for at least 8 hours. If they are pursuing, like most children, their own interests like activities, sports, music, whatever, that's even more time that they're spending apart. Your children need to learn about each other. Give them an opportunity to discover what they each enjoy, what they're each good at, what is important to each other. It's hard to know and like each other when you don't know each other. So help them practice in engaging in conversation or activities happily with each other, and you will have to help them with this. I recommend, I always steer back to this, I know, but I recommend you try collaborative games. These are games where all of the players are trying to beat the game. So no one player wins. You either, as a team, win because you beat the game, or you lose because the game beat you. They also can be called cooperative games. Each person in this game has a specific role. That means that siblings start seeing what their brother or their sister is really good at. They start seeing and valuing skills in each other, and it takes it to a whole nother level because they need that sibling strengths in order to win. And they're laughing. It's a game. They're laughing. They have a common goal, and they're having fun together. You can read all about collaborative games in Collaborative Games, a great way to connect as a family. I have a list of games that we played as a family. There's 25, I believe, and I think 7 of them are collaborative. And in the games, I say the reason why we love the game and the ages that I think it's best for, because we started when the kids were really young. And you can get those in the description notes. Number 5, spend time with your children. This seems like a no-brainer, but if you work and if the kids go to school, you guys are away from each other for a long period of time. Then you come home, and if you guys are done with all your activities, that's more time that you guys are separated, you've got all the stuff that has to get done. And so then it becomes a race to the bedtime, because you also know that the kids should get this much time to sleep at night. And then you start counting backwards, right? We've got to get fed, we've got to get bathed, we've got to get our evening chores done or whatever. We've got to do our stories, whatever that is. All of a sudden, all of your time starts ticking away. Well, children want to be noticed by, heard from, spoken to, and paid attention to by their parents. If your children feel that the time that you give them is limited, they're going to fight over you. You just became a hot commodity. To alleviate the battle over who mom loves the most, because she obviously loves the one that she's paying the most attention to most, schedule time together. Even if this time, this is how I ended up doing it a lot, is the kids are at my kitchen counter, I'm preparing dinner, and I'm listening to each one individually tell me about their day, tell me about their friends, talk to me, while I'm encouraging gently the other one to listen, not interrupt, as that child has the floor, as they tell us all about what's going on in their lives. Then the other child gets to do this, and we get to ask questions. And that way they know that we're all engaged in what they're saying and that they're being heard. This is great because not only are your children getting your attention, but they're also listening to each other. Number 6, limit separation. The trend is to have one child go with one parent and one child go with another or a family member. This is due to a variety of reasons. First of all, you have different activities and you don't want one child to be bored to death while the other kid is in soccer practice. Or because there is a developmental age spread, for example, at movie night, so you have both kids get to pick out a movie and then they each go watch it in separate rooms. Or parents are trying to raise the children almost in a divide and conquer method. So they have mom and me or dad and me days. The problem with this is that children do not learn how to support each other's activities because they don't ever show up for each other. They do not learn how to compromise on something like a movie because they always get to pick out what they want. And they do not have to learn to love as a family because they're always experiencing one-on-one. I am not saying you should not have mom and me days or you should not have that special dad time. I'm just saying that that is the very occasional special times. Those aren't the norm. 7, teach your children to support each other. Your children are going to bicker and fight. And it is not too bad. If it is not too bad, just let them work it out. Set the boundaries. That was way back in number 1. Set the boundaries around the argument and the resolution process so that they already know how arguments and resolutions look in your house. And it's really great if you role model this when you're having an argument with your partner. But give them clear expectations that they will be able to work it out. In How to Create Family Kindness in 5 Steps, I talked about creating a sense of identity as a family. Create that definition of family. For us, family comes first, family is important, and you always support your family. Then you need to demonstrate, however you define family, demonstrate what that means. So you can't just define it. You have to put it in action and demonstrate it. Explain that these siblings are expected to be united. They need to stand together. 8. Okay, this is a really fun one. Create a sibling fund. If you can, create a fund that siblings can spend, but they can only spend it together. If you can afford $20 a month, for example, you have a fund and you put that money in there. The kids can save that and say they save it for 3 months. Then they can go to an amusement park together. The key is that the children have to they have to use that money together. They get an equal amount and they have to use it doing something fun together. They could save it up for years if your children aren't into immediate gratification and they can see a big picture, and they could use it on a big trip. The important thing is together and fun. Creating a source of money that they can share to create fun gives children something to dream about and work towards together. So you're creating a common goal. Sibling rivalry and tension between brothers and sisters can be a major energy drain. It also creates a negative atmosphere. You can restore positivity and joy with these 8 steps to ending sibling rivalry. And the quote I picked is one of those snarky quotes that you would expect to hear from one of your siblings when they're not at their best. Why, if it isn't my big brother descending from on high to mingle with the commoners, Scar in The Lion King. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to send you a huge thank you. Please leave me a comment or review and share with other moms you know. Get in touch in the comments or on Kara's social media networks. See you next week for a new episode.